Stay alive.
Welcome to Stay a While, the podcast. I'm Tommi Vincent, and today I have joining me at the table, taking her seat at the table, Melissa Dawn-Simkins. Let me tell you some things about my dear friend, Melissa. Melissa Dawn-Simkins is a personal brand leadership pioneer and trusted advisor to Fortune 100 organizations, C-suite executives, and influencers. Melissa is the founder of Velvet Suite and the She Suite community. She is a contributor to major media outlets and author of Brand Me, Make Your Mark, the ultimate playbook for personal branding. Melissa also is affectionately known as the First Lady of Branding. Thank you so much, Melissa, for taking your seat at the table today. I am delighted and looking forward to this conversation. I know that our listeners are in for a treat.
I am honored to be here. This is fun. This is not work. This is not an interview. This is a conversation with a girlfriend and a woman I deeply admire. So, Tommi, I'm happy to be here. So grateful.
Absolutely. So before we get into our topic of the day, things never said, the importance of communication and having hard conversations, I want to ask you a few questions about one of the loves of my life, and that is food.
My,
So first question, Melissa, is what food best describes your personality and why?
ooh, that's a great one. I think kale.
Okay.
And I know it's not like a fun food per se, but it is something I try to eat every day, get my greens. It's kind of hard on the outside. It's kind of rough edges, but it's so good for you. And it's full of life. Anytime I eat kale, I feel my body comes to life. Like I literally feel it, waking up. Um, and so I think that's a good description of me. I want to bring life to people. I am a little rough in terms of just being driven, but at the end of the day, it's good for you. It's good for you.
Absolutely. And I love how you brought in the aspect of one, the greens, and how you immediately feel the life. But anytime I'm eating anything that is raw from the earth,
Mhm.
you just feel life. You
Yeah,
feel connected to something that it feels good going in, and you really feel like you did a service to your body.
absolutely.
So I
Absolutely.
love that description. Name one recipe that is special to you and why.
Oh, that's a good one. So I have a new recipe that I found that I started using last year, which is an Italian cream cheesecake. And
Mm.
it my auntie would make them a lot. And I found this recipe and it was actually Melissa's recipe. So I found it online and the person who wrote it is Melissa. And I've made it and I'm telling you, it like every year it gets better. Last year I made it for the first time and everyone's like, this is good. This year I don't think it made it past the day after Thanksgiving. Like the whole
Oh,
thing was
wow.
gone. So it was just something that I love seeing people enjoy, as you know, your family loving your food, enjoying it, talking about it. My dad called me the next day and was like, let me just tell you, this was so good. So that just made my day to know that they love what I made. So that is my new favorite recipe.
Okay. Has there ever been a time in your life when food was healing for your soul?
Mm. I would say yes. I feel like every time I take communion, it feels like it's healing for my soul.
Mm-hmm.
I think about my walk with the Lord. Like if I think about one thing that I do that I feel brings life to me continually is communion. So that is one example. Um, I think about my journey with fertility and finding ways to use food to heal my body and to go through that journey of coming through surgery, going through some of the challenges that I went through, just being a woman. And I found that becoming more aware of what food does to your body and how it impacts your body and how it can heal your body was like a huge, it's been a lifelong journey for me in terms of understanding that. So I think those are two examples where it's fed my soul, because it was deeper than just eating and enjoying. It was about touching me in my spirit and in my body.
Absolutely. It's amazing how with food is one of those things we all need it. It's something that there's not a person in the entire world that can go without food. It's nourishment. It's a gift from God. It provides us energy and sustenance, and it keeps us moving forward. But when you really understand the connection of food to your own personal body and what foods work for you, what foods don't work for you, there's really no one specific diet that works for everyone. So even when people are making diet choices, maybe to omit meat altogether or omit carbs altogether, I think that is such a, it can be dangerous because you're following behind it for reasons that may have you thinking one way, but ultimately, does that work for your body? Do you need certain foods in your body? Do and if you don't have that understanding about yourself, to just go into a diet choice based off of kind of the trend, or, even if it's you want to lose some weight or physically feel better, you still need to make sure you're providing your body the nutrients necessary and required.
That's right.
And so on that line, talking about the nutrients required for us as individuals to be able to flourish, to receive the nourishment required in order for our body to function properly, I want to talk about this notion of communication and having those hard conversations. And what I've found is that the toughest conversation to have is the truthful one that is necessary for us to have with ourselves in order for us to shed anything in our life that is prohibiting us from becoming everything that God created us to be. So that is what I desire for us to talk about today, Melissa. And I know, just based off of your experience in life, and I know professionally you are, well dressed, you have accolades, and you have all of those things which you've accomplished. But I know you could have never gotten to that place in your life without having those hard conversations with Melissa. The conversations that Melissa has when no one is around, when she's having those intimate moments with herself. I've had them. And so I want us to go there today for the listeners, to provide them some food for their soul, to cause them to awaken and to come to life. Is that okay with you?
Oh, I'm ready. It's going to be a good conversation. It is. Because I'm having these conversations with myself all the time. Even as of last night, laying in the bed. So this is perfect timing to have this talk. That was so perfect. Yes.
So what kind of communicator are you in general? What kind of communicator are you?
I'm a very direct communicator. I am someone who loves to communicate. So communication is one of my love languages. I love to talk. I love to express, but I also love to listen. And in the listening, I tend to absorb a lot. So one of the conversations I've had to have with myself is how much I'm absorbing everyone else's voice, right? What everyone else is saying, what they think, how they feel about a situation, and really coming to a point of clarity of what do I believe and what do I sense and what do I feel, and really stepping into courage to either believe that or to believe what everyone else says. So I think that that is one dimension of the conversation that you have to have. And I think it is important. You have to know what type of communicator you are, because in knowing that, you can understand if you are an avoider, or if you're someone who tends to suppress or express. And understanding that communication style and also the limitations to that and the balance of that, I think helps you in beginning to have some of those real conversations, because every communication style has a strength and a weakness. So you have to understand the balance of that, and also how that impacts the people who you love and who are around you the most, because their communication is not necessarily the same. But even still, taking in all those messages, it's like, what do you really, are you really hearing yourself? Are you hearing others people's voices?
Yeah, I found that I'm like you, I am a direct communicator. And I also, it's really important for me coming out of conversations and discussions with other people that everybody had an understanding. So there's no gray area. We're leaving on the same page. And I know sometimes in my marriage, and specifically, me and Troy had two very different communication styles. So I'm like, no, we going to talk about this until, like, repeat it back to me, like, like, because I want to make sure that you're hearing me and we're on the same page. Because when I walk away from a conversation, if there was any call to actions, any directives, I hit the ground running and I take what was given to me and I'm about to take it to a whole nother level and give it all kinds of life. And I've had to learn that while that is my communication style, I still have to be flexible when I'm communicating with people who have different communication styles, because it's not just about me getting all of that out and saying all I need to say, because that's ineffective if the other person on the other end is not receiving it, because I'm not speaking their language.
Yeah. Yes. I remember when I first got married, and there were so many times that I was learning how to communicate effectively with Will, my husband. And for a while, I started to suppress some things, right? So I wasn't sharing everything. And then I got to a point where I'm like, no, that's not healthy. You have to let him know. And so it would boil up, and then it would be like 11:45 at night, and I'd roll up like, we need to talk. And I would just go, and what do you have to say? You want me to say? You want me to say? He's like, I need to sleep on it. And like, why do you need to talk about this at 11:45? Can this wait? I'm like, well, you don't think I'm important? So then I go into all of that drama. And so I had to learn, like, number one, that wasn't the right time. Number two, you have to give people space to process. Everyone is not as quick to respond as you are, and so I've had to learn to practice my communication style in harmony with him, and doing it in a way that gets us to the ultimate goal, which is, right, understanding, alignment, support. And sometimes it's not even about the conversation. It's all these other things that we do that get us off the mark.
There are many factors that influence our communication style, good or bad. We have these things that weigh in on how we've learned even how to communicate. Who or what has influenced your communication style?
I would definitely first say my parents. I think both of my parents are very strong communicators. And so obviously I saw how they modeled communication in the home. So that, I would say, probably deeply influenced how I communicate. I also was someone who was not a very strong communicator when I was in my earlier years. And I didn't realize that that was actually one of my gifts. and I was very insecure when it came to speaking in public. So I started taking, my mom put me in forensics class, and I think I was in the fifth grade. And that's where I started to learn how to do public speaking and how to present myself with confidence. And so I had a couple of teachers who were, I think, influential in that way. Um, I think those are probably the individuals who helped shape my communication early on, I would say.
Hmm. So when you recognize, because the woman that you are today is not the woman you were maybe even a year ago. Like we're constantly, when you are on a pursuit of purpose, you are continually evolving. You will continue to grow because you're looking to maximize your output of who you are as a person and becoming the best version of you that you possibly can be. So based off of your influences of how you communicated to where you are today, are there any aspects of your communication where you see there's a need for you to even evolve even further in your communication just based off of where you desire to go?
Oh, yeah. I totally believe in uh, improvement, performance improvement, right? So, how can I be better? And I'm always thinking about leveling up. And for me, leveling up is seeing my imprint of leadership in others. It's not me, it's seeing the fruit of the work that I do in other people's lives.
Mm.
So the more clear I can be, I mean, in the work that I do every day, I support women advancing their purpose in the workplace and in life through the She Suite community. And we do an online program called the Brand Leadership Institute. And so just last week, we had women graduate, and to see them stand in their purpose, to talk about their why and how they've used this and how they've advanced their career and how they're helping their family. That to me is my proudest moment, to see them living into the words that I've spoken, not my life, but their life just on their next level. So for me, my goal is to continue to challenge myself to do that more and better with others. We're literally right now revamping our curriculum for 2021. So I'm taking what we did and I'm like, how do I better communicate this? How do I better illustrate what this concept means so people know how to apply it to their lives? Where is there an application gap? What does that look? So I'm literally working my communication into this content to empower someone else to use it faster and go further than I did. So to
Mm.
me, it's a constant pursuit, right? And that is only driven, as you said, from purpose. It's not money. It's not
Mhm.
notoriety. It's none of these things. It's like, this is my why. So I want to leave this earth with my why having been complete.
Absolutely. There's a saying, the truth hurts. And I believe quite the opposite. The truth helps.
Mm.
And when we're able to be truthful with ourselves, we are laying a foundation for some serious healing, some serious development, um, and also just the pulling down of these thoughts, these vain imaginations that we get throughout our life when we start having these open and honest communications with our own selves. Back to when, you get with Will at 11:45 at night trying to have this conversation, and then being able to walk away from that and have the conversation the next day, or even as you laid there and pondered that moment and said, Melissa, now what was you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, that was just wild what you just did. Like,
I know, I know.
so having those conversations are necessary. What is the toughest conversation you've ever had to have with yourself?
There's been a lot. I'm going to choose one. I think Um, yeah, so this is a good one. When I was single, um, I really, really had a good life. And I think on the outside, people would say, oh, she's doing her thing, traveling, getting to do this, meet these people, so on and so forth. And the heart conversation that I had to have with myself was not only did I not want to be single the rest of my life, but did I want to do the work to become a wife?
Mm.
And I knew I wanted to be married, but did I want to do the work to change my life and my lifestyle to make room for partnership?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember being at a table with several girlfriends having this conversation, and one of them recommended a book to me. And she was single at the time. The other one was married. And it was myself. And we were talking about dating and the lives and all of that. And she said, well, you can take this book because I can't do it. And it was literally challenging women who were single to really step it up and look at themselves in terms of what they needed to change. And I was like, well, I'll take it. And I read the book, and I was stepping on my toes. And I said, okay, I need to put myself through boot camp. If I really want this, then I need to do some things to work through what that would look like in terms of, I can no longer sleep with my laptop. I was an entrepreneur next to my bed, in my bed with my laptop. I would just roll up and start working, right? And it was like, no, you can't do that anymore, And so I had to learn that if I really wanted it, how did I really want it? Or did I just want what I thought it was going to give me? Was I going to be what he needed me to be, whoever that he was going to be? And so that was a tough conversation. And quite honestly, I think if I had not had that conversation, I might still be single.
Mm-hmm. So when you had that conversation with yourself, did it yield immediate results? Or did it take some time for you to process and for that to sink in and for you to say, you know what, I'm making that change for my life because I desire to be a married woman?
It's interesting. So I've had this common theme of 90-day plans in my life, and I live by them every time. So I said, I'm going to put and I did this for my business. I do it in my business. If you go through the BLI, you know the 90-day plan. I did it for fertility. I did it for marriage. And so I put myself, it was let's see, I got married in 2013. It was 2012. It was this maybe May of 2012. And so I put myself through this boot camp. And I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I started going on dates by myself. I started cooking because I was not practicing cooking a lot, right? So I started cooking. I started really getting deeper in the Word with me, just with my relationship with God. I competed in my first fitness competition because I had been so work focused. I hadn't taken the time to do something for me. And I did some other things that the book talked about, which actually proved to work. It was pretty amazing about how women interact with men. And I'll just tell you a quick story because it was hilarious. So the theme of the book was that women who tend to be, professional or type A person tend to be more aggressive, right? They you got to kill to eat. That's what you do as an entrepreneur. So you tend to take that into relationships with men. And if men like to pursue, so you got to learn how to reverse that energy, right? That you come in and you're just like, oh, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to go get your number. No, if he was a pursuer, he's going to want to pursue you. So she had this rule called the 5-second rule, which was if you're interested in someone and you see them in the room, you look towards them and look eye to eye contact for 5 seconds. You don't break eye contact. Tommy, that's a long time to look at someone that you don't know, smiling like you're doing, and just smiling for 5 seconds. Yeah. Just looking. You can't say nothing. You just look and smile for 5 seconds.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I was petrified doing that. I was like, this is crazy. But I would practice. It at the gym. I practiced it at the gym. So I was one time on a treadmill and I'm just walking and I had nothing else to do. So I saw this guy. I looked at him for 5 seconds, just straight smiling. He went from way over there in the corner to the next corner he's at the treadmill next to me. So we start
Mm-hmm.
talking, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?" And again, I'm practicing, right? So I said, "Oh, I'm not doing anything." He says, "Well, you want to go to dinner after the gym?" I said, "Sure." So we go to dinner, and I'm practicing, And I said, "So what made you come over?" He said, "I mean, you looked at me for like 5 seconds." I was like, it was. So I was doing all these things, practicing, and I told my girlfriend, I said, "Listen, let's hang out. Like this is my last single. Like this is my last. I call it my last single summer." And
Mm-hmm.
she said, "Well, you don't even have a boyfriend." I said, "Well, we're just going to put this plan in action. I'm going to be married. I'm going to be." And so literally, I met my husband in October of that year, and we were engaged in 6 weeks and married in 9 months. So I didn't control when I would meet him, but I did say I put the plan in place, and that plan took some time, but it was really, I think, me being ready.
Mm-hmm. I love that story. You know, I love being married, and I got married really early in life. I was 19 when I got married. And sometimes when I'm talking with young ladies who are single and their life is not conducive for marriage, and, there's so much pressure on women to that you have to, in order for you to be a woman, a strong woman, like there's certain ways you have to live your life in order to continue to project that and to own that strongness as a woman, and putting your stake in the ground that I am um, not going to become something just to become something else.
Mm-hmm.
In order to get married, there are some adjustments that both individuals have to make. This is not a one-sided situation. But as a woman, I can't speak for Troy and what he needed to do. But as a woman, I definitely was in tune with what things are happening in his life that already bring him joy. What things in his life are already proven to work well in, having a good relationship with him. And so I did look to his relationship with his grandmother and how, the things that were taking place in their relationship together that brought joy to him. And so when I got married, I carried those things over into the relationship in my way. I wasn't trying to be grandma, that's gross. But, just making sure that I was continuing to do things that will give life to him. And sometimes I think that women are, there's this barrier that they're putting up with an attempt to be what society is demanding of women to be. And you really got to be comfortable in your own skin to say, this is what I desire. Like for you, even at that table with your girlfriends, your one girlfriend's like, nope, this is not for me, but you wanted it. And you did what was necessary to get it. It's no different than a career path that you're pursuing. You have to make adjustments to get that. So when you want something in life, you need to figure out what does it require in order for me to get that. So I love that. I love that you were willing to do what was necessary. And in the process, you didn't say you lost Melissa. You said that you were developing Melissa. You were bringing some more assets and putting some more tools into the toolbox. So I love that.
And I think, to add on to that, that's the hard conversation, because you got to
Mm-hmm.
be vulnerable enough and humble enough to say, there's something more. There's something I can do better. Maybe I missed it. What is it that I am not really being truthful about? So
Mm-hmm.
it does go back to this hard conversation, because again, this is not what everybody sees. This is what you know to be true, that's happening in your head and in your heart. People have no idea.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Um, you know, women in general, but specifically Black women, when we are in professional settings and even sometimes around our peers, we tend to make our conversation and what we're looking to communicate palatable for other people so they'll receive it. So, you and I both admittedly said we're very direct communicators. And so if you're in a room with other people and you're wanting to have a conversation, sometimes we'll pull back that directness in an effort to be pleasing to the people that are in the room. What would you share with Black women about being able to communicate what is necessary and being in a room and being confident in who they are and not having to leave pieces of who they are outside the door?
I think it starts with embracing being different. And not only embracing being different, but the perspective that difference is valuable. Difference adds more value. And, I've been in many different settings where I've been the only one, the only Black woman, the only woman, the only person from this particular industry or that. And I found that when I embraced the fact that if I was the only one, I got excited because that meant I could be different, which means I'm going to intentionally stand out. If you look at, that bouquet of flowers, they're beautiful, but what stands out to me is the white because it looks different than the darker colors, right? It stands out, it pops. And so I think we like to pop with our wardrobe, with our hair, with our jewelry, the outside things, but when it comes to our voice, sometimes we'll let that sit back. And so I just think it's a mind shift when you realize like your difference is what is missing and what's needed, and embracing that and then owning it, you will stand out. And I think that's to me is the light switch that I had to go through that then made me realize like as if I'm the only one, that means I'm supposed to be here.
I love that. Oh, I love that. Why do you think it's so difficult for us to be attuned with ourselves in that way, where the process of making it and getting to a place where you feel like you're successful, we can get muddled down and completely forget about who we are. Like you just lose yourself in that whole process because it's constantly trying to, make it in whatever sector of life it is you're trying to thrive in and be successful in. Why do you think it's so difficult for us to be, aware of ourselves in that way?
We haven't spent enough time with ourselves. We haven't spent enough time listening and clarifying the voice that we're listening to. I always go back to my faith and my walk with God because that's where I get my clarity of why I'm here. And that's that grounding. But I will give you an example. When I left to start my business, at the time I was working for, a very well-known corporation. And I was living in a city where everyone in that, many, many, many people in that city worked for that company. And so when I left, I think, I can't tell you the number of people who asked me, am I going to be okay? Are you going to be okay? Are you going to make it? And literally as if my identity had become that organization, that company. And I realized very quickly, if I was going to survive as an entrepreneur, I was going to have to cocoon myself. I was going to have to really get in a place where everything around me was focused on my vision and my purpose, because the other voices were coming to distract me or discourage me because they were going to tell me what I was supposed to be and what I could be and what I couldn't be if I wasn't attached to these other identities, right? So I think part of why we are where we are as women is women of color specifically, because there's so many people who have labels for who we are, what we're supposed to do, and how we're supposed to do it. And until we really, and it's hard work because you've got to really get to that knowing that you know, so that you can go forward in confidence. Not that you know it all. Like I didn't know how it was going to end. I didn't know if I was even going to survive, right, as an entrepreneur. But I knew that I got clarity of what I was supposed to be doing, and I was going to pursue that. And in that instance, I even ended up moving out of that city because I needed another place to go where I could be in an environment where other entrepreneurs and I could begin to thrive and feel like this was not my only bubble, right? So sometimes you got to move, but you definitely cannot lose sight of that vision and purpose and mission, because that's really what's going to ground you and help you push forward.
Mm-hmm. What do you need to tell Melissa today?
I think I need to tell Melissa today to be honest with yourself. Keep being honest with yourself. Keep checking where you are and being honest with yourself, and not to compromise that.
Mm-hmm.
Not to compromise that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really believe that when we master our internal conversations, the external conversations come easy,
Mm-hmm.
because we will always, in my opinion, be our toughest critics,
Mm-hmm.
be our, sternest judges, everything about our life. We keep it under the microscope, from our physical appearance to our productivity and our output, all of that stuff. We are the ones that do the greatest harm to ourselves. And so, even the conversation about being honest, also extending grace to yourself and loving yourself and being patient with yourself and understanding towards yourself, and making sure that we're also encouraging ourselves and telling ourselves when we are doing a good job. Like, that's so important, like, because when you do it for yourself, then you're not starving for other people to do it for you.
Right.
When you acknowledge, how wonderful you are, or if you acknowledge, girl, you got some work to do.
Mm-hmm.
All of that goes hand in hand with you loving yourself to life first and not relying on other people to do that. So when you go into rooms and go into spaces to have conversations, you say it willingly and freely because you done already did all of that work with yourself, and you know who you are. You stepping in there fully confident, and it's go time. And so whatever's necessary to say to get what needs to be done, you do that because you done already put in the work with yourself.
Mm-hmm. It is work. It is work. Even all of that, the grace, the loving on you, that's work, because it's not something that comes a lot of times intuitively for us. Critiquing us does. We're quick to critique ourselves and each other, but loving on yourself, that's work.
Absolutely. So we're down to our last question. What would you tell your younger self about speaking up and saying what's on your mind?
Do it. Just do it. Just say it.
Say it, Melissa. Say it.
Just say it. Yeah, because I would bite my tongue. I told you I was always awkward in front of people and talking, and I would just say it. Just do it.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't get a chance to talk about the She Suite community podcast. I know that's something that you have recently launched. So before we sign off, is there anything else that you would like to share with our listeners? And also, please share with us about the She Suite community podcast and how people can stay in contact with you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I love the shared sisterhood, and I love real conversations and us coming together to solve big problems. So we've launched the She Suite community podcast, and it's really about bringing together women at all levels and challenging us to level up in our career and our life, and leveraging the idea of personal brand and authenticity as creating that point of difference and living that life with intention and purpose. So any of your listeners can go to the shesuitecommunity.com. That's where you can see our podcast, and would love to have you join us.
Absolutely. I'm already there. So I don't need that call to action.
That's right. We're gonna have you come on so you can talk and share with us your story. We're gonna have to reciprocate.
Absolutely. I'm definitely not one of those. If I have someone that's in my circle, one, I am cheering them on. But if they have things that they're doing, I'm not just like, oh, girl, that's nice. No, you have to intentionally support what they're doing so they can be successful. And I mean, come on, people. It's action. Love is action. When you love and you care about people, supporting them requires you to take action. And so,
Right.
girl, I'm already there. And I am a fan of yours. You have spoken life into me on many occasions. We've known each other for a very, very long time. And I want you to know that I am so proud of the work that you're doing and your commitment to continuing to be the champion for women everywhere and supporting them and really challenging them to be their best selves. I want you to know that, Melissa, I really am proud of you.
Oh, well, thank you. It's a love fest. I'm proud of you and I'm grateful for you. I mean, you've served as an example, a prayer partner, a friend, someone who is just, when I think of Tommy, I think of a rod. Like you are strong and you are like just solid. And it's very rare you find solid people these days. It's a lot easier to be superficial. And so
Hmm.
I love you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you so much for taking your seat at my table today. And thank you for sharing with the listeners, our community of listeners, um, food for their souls. I know that they have received some nuggets, some takeaways that ultimately, when they apply them, their life will transform. And so I value that. And thank you so much for taking your seat at the table.
Thank you for having me. It's been fun. It went by so fast.
Yeah.